Hey guys, welcome back to Frozen Belle. Today is Magical Miniature Mondays and we are working on a few of the new Harry Potter Back to Hogwarts Miniverse capsules. So we're going to work on the Monster Book of Monsters first. And stay tuned because I'm going to have several remixes that I want to share with you guys. And I think they're going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. And feel free to comment below because I love talking to you guys. So let's get into this. So I'm just going to be working on making the Monster Book of Monsters. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm using some distress ink along the edges of everything to kind of age it down a little bit so it's not just so bright, crispy white. And then I'm going to assemble it just like the instructions say. The only thing I'm doing differently is I'm adding distress ink to the edges of the paper to age it. And then I've added a little bit of distress ink here and there to the fur for the cover. You can't really see it very well, but it does add a little bit of depth and shading, so that's pretty cool. Now I also used some gold rub and buff to add some kind of depth and a little bit nicer finish to the buckle for the belt that closes the book, and I think that looked really cool as well. Now these little teeth for this thing, they look really odd before you get the fur put on. They do look very big and scary, but once you get the fur on, it looks really nice. Okay, now I was a little skeptical about this gluing the fur to this kind of rubbery textured surface, but this glue is no joke, you guys. Don't get this on your hands. I mean, it'll come off, but like, it's some good glue. Like, wow. So be careful what surfaces you get this glue on because it is no joke. Okay, so the last thing I did was took the packaging that the book was wrapped in. It has the words Monster Book of Monsters printed on it. So I just cut those out and then glued them to the front of the book. Okay, I absolutely love how this turned out, and I saw someone post in one of the Facebook groups where she's doing drawings inside, and I think I'm going to try doing that because it looks really fun. But I was really happy about how this turned out. Okay, so the next project I'm going to be making the Gryffindor Scarf. And then we're going to do a remix, a really fun little remix after I get done. So stay tuned for that. Hang in there with me, guys. Okay, so I'm going to get started with the weaving, and I'm going to follow all of the directions and just weave this little scarf. Now, this is not a craft for the faint of heart, you guys. It takes a little bit of doing. It takes some time to weave all this up. It does take some patience, but just take your time and you'll get there, I promise. So after I finally got it all woven, this is what it looks like. It has a back side and a front side, and yeah, it turned out pretty decent, I thought. Alright, so now it's time to put the little patches on the ends. Now these are kind of like stickers, they're like fabric stickers. But I was afraid it was going to pull off, so I did go around the very outside edge with my art glitter glue, and I think that's going to hold it just fine. I just did a small little line all the way around the outside edge and then pressed it on, and I think it's going to hold pretty well. And look how adorable, you guys. Oh my goodness, it is so stinking cute. I love it. And so you just take your loom and you fold it in half, and that's supposed to be your little stand for your scarf. But we're going to do something a little bit different. If you want to hang in there with me, we're going to do that. But first, let's do another remix with some of the packaging. So I'm going to take a little piece of the yarn, the little leftover cut off piece of yarn from weaving the scarf. Now I'm going to take this packaging that was around the yarn, and then I'm going to cut it into threes. It's kind of folded into threes, so I'm just going to cut it into threes. And then I'm going to kind of cut some slots in the bottom and create some little pennants. So here I'm just doing a little snip to mark the center, and then I'm going to cut towards the end of that snip from the bottom corners. And I'm going to repeat that for the other two. So the last step is to place a bead of glue along the top back edge, and then lay those pennants over the yarn to glue them on. And there we go. We've got a fun house banner. So woohoo! That was really easy and really fun to do. Okay, so for a fun little remix, not the last remix, but another one, I am just taking a Sharpie and I'm marking the areas where the accent color on the scarf goes, because I'm going to use this loom to weave a Ravenclaw scarf with some yarn that I have on hand. Okay, so I got that Ravenclaw scarf kind of woven. I think my yarn was a little too thin. It made it a little janky looking, but you know, it's there. I used the loom to do it. I made it happen. So there's that, and yeah, we're moving on. So I just drew a kind of simple little Ravenclaw image on some piece of paper and made little patches for my Ravenclaw scarf, but you know, it's handmade for sure. I like how they turned out though. It was a long process, but it was a fun result. Okay, so now for my favorite Miniverse remix I've done in a long time. I couldn't help but notice how much this thing looked like the Mirror of Airhead. And I think probably by design, you know, and I think everybody probably sees it, but yeah, I'm going to make a miniature Mirror of Airhead. So I'm going to take some alcohol and I'm going to use that to remove the markings that I put on. You can use alcohol to get permanent marker off of like smooth surfaces. So that just takes it right off, and then our frame is ready to go. So I bought these wall mirrors. They're kind of like super thin acrylic, mirrored acrylic. They're super, super thin, and they have like a double stick backing on them or something, but it's so thin you can actually cut it with scissors. And so that's what I'm using, and I'm just going to trace out what, you know, the area that I need it to be, and then I'll cut it out and we'll put it inside. So I've just cut it out, and then I cut the corners at an angle because there's these little posts, and yeah, just to kind of go in between those posts. And one side the posts are a little lower, so if you're tracing this out and you're doing this, make sure you get it below that lower post. Also, you could use like tin foil or, you know, any kind of mirrored paper, anything like that to make your mirror as well. Now I'm going to take two of the table legs from the little tables that come in each one of these, and I'm going to cut the top like bit off, the part that goes up inside the table slot. So just cutting that off with some scissors, And then I need to cut the two sides off, I think, because it just sticks out a little far. But it's too thick on the sides for scissors, so I'm just using some flush cutters, and that did the trick. So once I had those sides cut off, I just used a little file to, smooth out any of the rough edges. Okay, now before I assemble everything, I'm going to take some more of the antique gold rub and buff, and I'm just going to cover this whole frame up because right now it's a little bit yellow gold plastic looking, and I want it to be a little bit more rich looking, more like the Mirror of Airhead. So I'm just going to do that, and I did have to put 2 coats, letting the first coat dry so that it would really cover that plastic. Okay, and then I'm also going to cover the legs, making sure not to get any on the inside of the leg, the one that's going to be attached to the mirror, because it's a wax, and if you try to put any glue over the top, it could just break off because it doesn't get a good seal. So I just left that part plastic, but I did the inside bottom and the outside of each leg. So once the wax has completely dried, you can buff it with a soft cloth. When you have put rub and buff on a very smooth plastic surface, you have to be careful how you rub it because it could rub off a little easier, especially if it hasn't completely dried. So make sure it has completely dried before you buff it. Okay, now it's time to put the mirror in, and since this does have a double stick tape on the back of it, I'm just peeling up the edge and cutting a little sliver off of the side, the top, and the bottom. And that's so that the edge can stick to the frame without leaving the very center still sticky. Okay, and the mirror presses in just like that. And then you close up the 2 sides of the frame and you have the basis for the Mirror of Airhead. It is so cute. Oh my gosh. Now once I get those feet on there, I think we'll be golden. So I just need to hot glue some feet on. And when you hot glue the feet on, it's going to keep those 2 sides of the mirror together. And this is our completed Mirror of Airhead. I love how it turned out. Okay, so last week, before I even got my Miniverse capsules in the mail, before I even knew I was going to do this mirror, I finally found some of the little miniature Harry Potter figures at Dollar Tree. I had seen other people haul these, and I hadn't seen any near me ever until last week. And so I was like, oh cool, I'll grab these, thinking I would make like Christmas ornaments or something out of them, gifts or whatever, not realizing that the Mirror of Airhead remix was going to be the perfect, absolute perfect size for this figure. I was like, yes. It was so meant to be, you guys. Check it out. Like, how cool is that? Anyways, I love how it turned out. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, as well as the other remixes. I really appreciate you watching. Hit that like button and that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!